Hello and welcome. I'm Oksana Bonita. This is Midwest Crime Corner. Let's get into it. If you watched some of my live stream the other day, you may have heard me talking about Herbert Baumeister and how I want to cover him here on my channel, but that I don't want to do it anytime soon because I feel like I'm heavily featuring Indiana cases and I don't want to keep doing that. I want to have some more diversity since this is Midwest Crime Corner and not Indiana Crime Corner. But a couple days after I made that live stream, the Hamilton County Coroner's Office announced that they identified another one of Herb Baumeister's victims. If you're unfamiliar with who Herbert Baumeister is, I'll give you a brief rundown. Herbert Baumeister was an Indiana businessman and founder of the Save-A-Lot stores. Not to be confused with the grocery chain. Herb was the founder of the Save-A-Lot thrift stores, two of which having been opened in Indianapolis after the initial one opened in 1988. Herb was also a serial killer who was active in the 1980s and in through the 1990s. Herbert Baumeister lived on a sprawling 18-acre farm in Westfield, Indiana called Fox Hollow Farm, with his wife and kids, where he would bring back his male dates that he would pick up at and around a gay bar in Indianapolis, luring the men to their deaths and burying them in his yard, which ultimately was his downfall when his son was playing in the wood line near their house and he found a human skull. After a warrant for his arrest was issued, Herbert Baumeister took off to Canada, where he unalived himself on a park bench in 1996. He is suspected of having killed at least 25 men. Not only was Herb luring men to his home, with it being suspected that a lot of the men lost their lives inside Herb Baumeister's pool, he was also suspected of being the I-70 Strangler. The I-70 Strangler is still not positively identified today, but the authorities suspect heavily that Herb Baumeister is the I-70 Strangler. The I-70 Strangler took the lives of at least 12 men and young boys throughout the Midwest in the 1980s and into the early 1990s, with meeting young men and boys at local gay bars, later dumping their naked or half-naked bodies near I-70, giving the killer the nickname the I-70 Strangler. The body stopped showing up around I-70 around the time that Herbert Baumeister and his family moved into the property at Fox Hollow Farm, leading authorities to later believe that it was Herbert Baumeister who was the I-70 Strangler because he now had a place to dispose of and hide the remains of his victims. Investigators have had the difficult task of identifying more than 6,000 bone fragments that were initially found on the property in 1996. Baumeister is believed to have strangled his victims before burying them in mulch in his yard, then moving the bodies to a burn pile, burning them before pulverizing the bones. It is also reported that Herbert Baumeister used the victims' bones as gravel in his yard. Bone fragments and teeth were found scattered along the wood line over a half-mile outside of his house. Jeffrey Allen Jones was reported missing in August of 1993 after he went missing in July of 1993. Jeffrey went missing out of Indianapolis, and he was 31 at the time, but he was from Fillmore, Indiana, over an hour away from where his remains were found. In 2022, the Hamilton County Coroner's Office announced that they were reopening the investigation into solving the remains that were found on Herbert Baumeister's property, stating that they believe that they have more than 25 men left to identify. They said that with the new DNA technology, they were hopeful that they would be able to bring answers to families. With more searches conducted throughout the years at the Fox Hollow Farm property, more than 10,000 bone fragments have been found. A victim of Baumeister's was positively identified in 2023 as 27-year-old Alan Livingston, who went missing from Indianapolis on August 6, 1993. In January of this year of 2024, additional remains of 34-year-old Manuel Resendez, who also went missing out of Indianapolis on August the 7th of 1993, were also positively identified. Initially, some of Manuel's remains were already identified during the initial search in 1996, but with a renewed interest in the case, they're still testing remains, and going through the remains, they just came across more of Manuel's remains that were positively identified. And just this week, the Hamilton County Coroner's Office announced that they positively identified the remains of Jeffrey Jones, located at the Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield, Indiana. Previously identified victims include Roger Goodlett, who was 34 at the time of his murder, Stephen Hale, who was 26 at the time of his murder, Richard Hamilton, who was 20 at the time of his murder, Mike Kern, who was 46 at the time of his murder, Johnny Bear, who was 20 at the time of his murder, and Alan Broussard, who was 28 at the time of his murder. If you or someone you know had a male family member go missing in the 1980s and into the early 1990s, please contact the Hamilton County Coroner's Office to submit your DNA. I will put their information down below for those who need it. I'm confident with the advancements in DNA analysis and the regained interest in solving who these men are, we can close the case on Herbert Baumeister very soon. So I will make an in-depth video for Herbert Baumeister in the future, but like I said, I don't want to feature too many Indiana cases right now. But with this new information that came out, I thought it was important to make a video about Jeffrey and the renewed interest in solving this case. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know your thoughts down below. I'll catch you in the next one.